David.
Hello.
You prefer to be called Dave?
I don't care.
He doesn't care what he's called. He already told me that. It doesn't matter. Listen, he was really good friends with Frank Bieber. So we already know that if they went back many, many years, and they did, that he's a good sailor, right? Because Frank was a sailor. Tell us a little bit about your early years, David.
How early do you want to go?
Talk a little bit about your family and your parents being missionaries, and where you grew up.
So at the age of 3, my parents were Baptist missionaries, and they were assigned to go to the new state of Israel. And we were on a freighter for about a month getting there, because that was the only way you could get there.
My goodness.
And then when we got there, they were assigned an orphanage to take care of 19 kids, Arab kids, in Nazareth.
Nazareth.
And so, you know, we lived I lived at the orphanage and blah, blah, blah. We'd have visitors come, and all the orphans would sing songs for the visitors, and etc. We lived just up the road from Mary's Well, what they called Mary's Well. And then eventually we moved out into the country on a farm.
My goodness, how many years were you there?
I was in Israel till I was 19, and
my. So you grew up in Israel.
Right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, we came back a couple of times to the States. I came back in 1st grade and 7th grade.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you grew up in Israel, and how do you think your experience there was different than if you had lived in the United States?
Oh, well.
You don't know.
I mean, you know, it's just a whole different world, you know. My problem with living in Israel was that, you know, missionaries are like, they want to convert anybody. So we were right in the middle of the Arab culture and the Jewish culture, and, you know, and that dichotomy still exists, you know, and you want to empathize with one group or the other, you know, the Holocaust survivors, which are, and I went to Hebrew school. Our history lesson was reading the Old Testament, and that was part of the curriculum, you know, read a book of. So anyway, my first language actually was Arabic.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, you know, English and Arabic, and then eventually I went to Hebrew school. It was Hebrew, and I was not, you know, I mean, my whole education thing was a little bit cattywampus, because I never couldn't quite fit in, you know, educationally. But I lived on a farm. I had a great childhood. We had a swimming pool, and then it had summer camps. That was the mission there, you know, to have summer camps for kids. And anyway.
Okay. And your parents, when they retired, did they came back to the States?
Yeah, they came back in the States. I was, I don't know what year that would have been, but probably in, I don't know. I don't know what year that is.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, they went, and my dad was a professor at a small Baptist college in Williamsburg, Kentucky, and he really enjoyed that, teaching, you know, because he was a minister, and yeah.
Okay. And you went to the international school in Israel? You graduated there?
Well, I went to Hebrew school for my formative years till I was 5th or 6th grade, and then we went on furlough. Then we came back and went to American International School, which was mostly geared towards American diplomats and that kind of thing, yeah.
Okay. And you kept friends from that time?
Yeah, I had friends and stuff. Yeah, I still do, still in communication with them. And
Then you came back to the States on
no,
your
and then
own? No?
then at the age of 19, I ran away from home at 18 or 7, something like that. Went and lived with the beatniks down on the beach.
Okay.
In Israel.
Okay.
on the Red Sea. And then I got exposed to all these beatniks. We're going to India and stuff. I was like, oh, that sounds like fun, you know. So, so when I graduated, I got on a plane and went to Istanbul and went overland to India.
Oh, my goodness. So I imagine your parents, being devout Baptist, might have thought their son was wayward at that time.
Yeah, I don't think they ever gave up on, well, my mom never did, but, you know, but I guess that's normal. But, you know, I was just sort of a wayward child. I mean, I didn't have a particular spiritual interest in India at the time. It was sort of, you know, a budding thing. But anyway, you go to India and spirituality is all over the place, and you know, and I was all over the place on that. But anyway, I ended up in Benares, the holy city in India, on the Ganges River. Stayed on a houseboat and got meet some people, and they said, well, you go out to Saranath. Saranath is the place where the Buddha preaches first sermon. And there's a lot of monasteries and, you know, religious things. It's a very beautiful place. So I went there and I had a very profound experience there, and from there I went to Bodh Gaya, which is where the Buddha was enlightened, under the Bodhi tree. And then I traveled, and my goal was to study yoga really in India. And so eventually went to Nepal, met some people, and I came back to South India and studied yoga for about 3 months or so in an ashram. And then, you know, I was there for about a year. I ended up going back down to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was just on the tip of South India, and it's a Buddhist country, you know. And I met somebody there, captain, an Australian guy, who was getting this boat ready to go to Iran, and this was when the Shah was still in power. And anyway, we did a voyage for about a month on a boat, delivering it to Iran. I flew back to Israel there then.
Wow. What an early history. Fantastic. And at that time, beatniks were what then we called hippies, and then whatever. Yeah. How did you get back and become comfortable in the United States, or did that take a great deal of time?
You know, I mean, when you grow up like that, when you're not part of the, totally involved in the culture. I mean, it's still a conflict for me. You know, even thinking about it today, what's going on, and you know, because I've been to Gaza. The Baptists used to have a church, hospital there in Gaza, and so I mean, I have a problem just dealing with it. I mean, you know, mentally. Anyway, what was the question again?
Having not grown up in the United States, how did you come back? And
well, yeah, I didn't come back right away because, you know, the Vietnam was going on. I thought, I don't want to get involved. I mean, I grew up in a war zone. I lived through 2 wars over there in Israel, and I pretty much knew what war was about. So I went back to India again, and stayed another year or so, and then eventually I made my way around and came back to the States. So I was in my early 20s and stuff when I came back. I lived in a cave in Kentucky.
Okay.
For a
Okay.
while. And a teepee. I built it. The first thing I did was build a teepee, and I had not been in a northern climate for years and years, so I didn't. And I lived in a teepee, and it snowed, and I froze my butt off. But that was good. My parents had bought this property with some other missionary types, and it was like 300 acres, and it was just beautiful land, but it's all just trees and it was really nice. Still there. Anyway, where were we going with that? I don't remember.
Right, bringing yourself back to the United States.
Oh yeah, back to the U.S. So then I came back, and then I went to college I went to Berea College, which is a work-study college, and everybody works there. Nobody, you don't pay to go there. You work your way through college. So I did a lot of interesting jobs on campus. I was, I was in pottery and stone carve, jewelry making and all that kind of stuff, blacksmithing. Anyway, and then I got I still had wanderlust bad.
Oh yeah, I would think.
So after I went to college, I was like, well, I'll just go down to. I went to go to become a sailor, so I used to read. I read Jack Kerouac a lot, so he was like a Dharma bums and all that. So I thought, well, I'll go to sea. So I came down here, got my AB certificate, went to sea. We went all the way down to South America, Brazil, and all that stuff, and then came back. And I was living. My goal was also to live on a sailboat, So I did live on a sailboat in Slidell. I can't vouch for the quality of it, but it was a leaky boat.
But it was a sailboat.
Anyway, so that's how I met Frank. I was living on my sailboat in Bonfuca Marina in Slidell, and Frank would come in with his trimaran, and we got to know each other, and eventually, I went to sea a lot, and then we'd known each other for a long time. Then eventually, I got a bigger boat, and he, and lived on it, and that's a long story. Anyway, that's how I met Frank, and I've been knowing him for, I was probably in my early 30s. So,
My goodness.
About 34 years.
Well, I knew you were close friends, and I couldn't remember. I was trying to remember who came to Unity of Gulfport first, whether it was you or Frank and Sharon, but I remembered all of you showing up about the same time, and I knew you were close because I could see that.
I met Frank before Sharon did, actually.
Is that true? Oh my goodness. Okay.
And he. No, what it was, he did. They came down to live on the coast. They got a free digs over in Biloxi, and so we got back together, and we went to the one of the casinos. They had the crawfish boil or something, and then Betty was there, and I don't remember who else. Several people from, I think Jan was there.
Jan and Joan, maybe.
Yeah, I don't
okay.
remember.
Okay.
And we had. Then I said, these are all people from Unity. He says, Unity? You mean Unitarian? No, I said Unity. He says, really? And I'd really never known that he was interested in or had grown up in Unity, And then so anyway, so then he started coming here.
Okay, and you've lived in Bay St. Louis for a few years.
Yeah, I lived in I've been living in Bay St. Louis a long time. The longest time I've lived anywhere, really. But I had a house in Old Town, and then I sold it and got divorced, and now I live on the water in Bay St. Louis.
Okay. I remember where you lived in Bay St. Louis. We moved there.
You're right.
In November of 2005,
Right.
and everything was pretty much destroyed, but I remembered.
Yeah.
And then a man that was his name Les, he worked for you
Oh,
and
yeah,
lived in
Les.
one of your apartments, and he did some work for us for quite a while.
Right.
Right, so I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah.
Well, looking back at your life, David, and I've got to say it is absolutely fascinating. I love it. One of the things that stands out to me the most is what an opportunity. There you go into the new state of Israel that had just been formed, and all of the people that were either Holocaust survivors or their families, their descendants, or those who had been run out of the Holy Land thousands of years before. We don't talk about those, the diaspora that happened much before then, but right there, here you are with a Christian affiliation and family going into a traditionally, culturally Arab area, and with a Jewish presence establishing itself.
Yeah.
What an interesting time that was for you to be there, and special.
Yeah, it was a very, very exciting time. I mean, I didn't look at it as anything particularly unusual because I didn't have any reference point. But you know, I mean, and you know, it was good. I haven't been back to Israel in 40 years plus. You know, so I don't know if I could go back because it's got to be a whole nightmare. You know, as far as
Right.
not so much. I mean, you know, when you grow up in a war zone all the time, it's like, okay, well, whatever, you know, you
Right.
listen to the news every day, and all that part of it I can deal with, you know, but
Right.
I mean, just the fact that when I lived there was like 2 million people. Now there's 6 million people
Right.
and it's a tiny area, you know.
Right.
From Tel Aviv to what used to be the West Bank was only like 30 miles, you know, 30 miles wide. That's the narrowest part of the country.
Wow.
That's the part I lived in, you know. So it was a tiny place, but anyway.
I'm sure it wouldn't be the same anyway, so it's probably a good decision not to go back to visit there. You have your memories of what it was.
Right.
Right.
But I guess I should go back and just digest it, you know. I mean, I don't have a particularly, you know, desire to go back because I mean, I don't know. I just don't have a particular interest in going back. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind going back. I wouldn't mind going back. And the only continent I haven't been on is, well, I say that, Antarctica and Africa. You know, I haven't been to Africa. So I'd like to go to Egypt maybe.
Okay. Well, you were close.
Yeah, it was very close. But you know, I grew up. You know, when your parents your parents are missionaries and you know everything's in the Bible, and we used to go to see all these ruins and this. I've had enough of this. All these ruins. Jesus was here, and this is this, and that is that.
Right.
You know.
Right. Had
Just
enough.
looked like a pile of rocks to me.
You just couldn't see the sacred for the pile of rocks. I hear
Well, I went to
you.
college for a year in Jerusalem, you know, and that, you know, that when after the second after I came back from India the first time, I went to college in Jerusalem. There was an American college there, which the only people would take me, but but I did that for a year, and I lived walking distance from the old city, and I used to roam around at night in the old city, and it's a very I guess it's a vortex kind of place, It's got energy there, but it's so much energy, and people don't know how to manage it. I mean, I guess it's how many thousands of people have died over the centuries fighting for that energy, and they're still doing it.
Fighting over that one little scrap of land when what you say. It is, to many, it looks like a pile of rocks, but it's sacred to each of them, and they're going to fight over it till the death.
Right.
Well, we just hope that energy is on the earth everywhere, and we see it every day when we turn on the news, and it's a lot of angst and energy and worry, and the old view of war, and this is mine, and you can't have it, and has created so much death and destruction over the years. And we just pray. We pray for peace, and that we can all say, okay, well, that's all right. You can live there, and I can live right here peacefully with you.
Yeah, a friend of mine, another of the missionary kids, MKs we call them, he was he mastered Hebrew and Arabic, and he could read it and write it. Anyway, he became a colonel in U.S. military, and then he retired from the military, and he was teaching Arabic in Baylor University in Texas. But anyway, he just went back. I just talked to him like a few weeks ago, and he said he went back to Israel to, just because he knows people. He grew up with all these orphans that I grew up with. He's more in tune with them than I am. But anyway, he says everybody's really discouraged over there. And it's like I said, the only thing that they can think is gonna, the Arabs are this and the Jews are this, and the only thing that's gonna, they're just waiting for the Messiah. I mean, everybody's waiting for him. The only thing they can think is that to solve that is the Messiah. So,
they can't.
So the Jews have this Messiah thing, and the Christians have a Messiah thing, and the
Arabs.
I don't know about the Islam, but so much. But I just don't know too much about their idea of Messiah. Well, they didn't deal. I mean, the Islamists, Muslims believe in Jesus, but not as a divine being or as
a messenger.
But he's more of a prophet type,
Right.
So anyway.
Well, if we can ever get above, use that energy that you're talking about for something good, instead of war, and of course it's what I teach every Sunday, Spirituality 101, and that is we have to get above our egos. And to do that, it's not that easy, is it? Especially when you're claiming this land is mine, and the other is doing the same thing. And, well, no, you killed my brother and you killed my uncle, and, you carry all these warring thoughts down through the generation. And somebody has to stop, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole Jewish eye for an eye thing, and the Islamists and Muslims, they have basically the same thing, an eye for an eye kind of thing. So, but within the border of Israel, there's, citizens of Israel, there's like 2 million Arabs,
Right.
and so they're integrated into the whole culture there. So but they're second-class citizens. They don't serve in the military, and but they don't complain too much because they're prosperous. They got jobs and all that kind of stuff. So, but I mean, even if they did complain, they would be ushered. They would be sanctioned somehow or other,
Right.
by because Israel's basically a military state.
Right.
It's more like a city state, sort of like Singapore in a way, but because it's just.
Well, how, you mentioned you had an epiphany, and how do you find peace in your life, Dave? Do you spend a certain amount of time in quiet or by the water, or?
Well, like I said, I studied yoga and stuff, and when I was in India, and I guess I've been on that path since then. I do a meditation every day, or as much as I can. I have a spiritual leaning. I've been resistant to the Christianity, like as portrayed by the Baptists, and I didn't want to get too involved. So if you're a Christian, then you got this whole
Right.
Jewish and Muslim and
Right.
Christian.
You have all the religious dogma and doctrine that it'll drive you nuts.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Just clear your
but I
mind.
mean, more recently, I've been into the I am, and that was my teacher in India. Even though he was passed, but his teachings was self-inquiry and your essence is divine,
Right.
and you can achieve knowledge by self-inquiry. And recently, and I've that's been that's how my spiritual practice has always evolved. Even though I was involved in Buddhism and this and that, but recently I listened to this I am discourses on YouTube, and it goes into Christianity, but more in the sense of the practice of the I am, which is what Moses saw in the burning bush, and and Jesus talks about the I am all the time, So and that blended exactly with my practice. So
Okay. Wonderful. Well,
I was lucky in the sense that I was not Jewish and not Arab, so I didn't have any particular affiliation to either side of it, and happily, and I look back on it, I'd go to Hebrew school, and this is, where are you from, and and I'd say, well, my parents are missionaries, and only, to me at the time it didn't make any, I didn't even,
right.
but to them, and maybe most of the Jewish kids, whatever that is, I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm very Israeli. I'm very, okay, whatever,
Right.
Yeah.
Do you then, and I think what Pamela was asking about, when you turn on the news and you see all the different events happening all over the world, do you have a way of staying above it and staying at peace?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's karma, I mean, it's just where we are at any particular time is our past energies coming to bear, I mean.
Right.
And even if you're in the middle of it, I mean, that is your karma, and you just got to go with it, whatever it is. It's a very sad thing that, but if you hang on to that I mean, I don't worry about it per se, because like I say, I look at it from a karmic point of view. It's everybody's karma wherever they are, you know, because they've made those choices in previous lives to where they are right now.
In this country, or maybe Hawaii, there's several that grew up in Hawaii here too, but we appreciate your perspective on this, and we appreciate so much that you come to Unity of Gulfport and you're part of this community. You must have liked our vibe or something, because you came and stayed.
It's like we used to go to the Methodist church there in the Bay St. Louis. You know, like I'm always mentally arguing with the minister. You know.
Right, and that right. When you get to that point, you need to make a change.